Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right. So that is what I'm talking about. It's great to have everyone here. We're going to open up with some opening songs. Kia, the computer's up here, if you wouldn't mind coming and joining us. So this is the Poor People's Campaign of Santa Cruz County, and this is our first town hall in Santa Cruz, and we'll get more into that in a second. But the Poor People's Campaign especially has been centered around song to try and bring it back to the original roots of the 1960s movement, since we're now 50 years later. And there's a feeling that song has left a lot of the movement, and it brings a lot of spirit and energy into the room and into the activities. So we're going to go through two opening songs. You may have heard them before, you may not have heard them before, but we have the lyrics up here for you, and I have a tambourine. Does anyone else want a tambourine? Because we have two tambourines. All right, come on, let's do some tambourine. Yes. So this first song, it's called I Woke Up This Morning. Who here knows it? Show of hands. All right, so for those of you that don't know it, the words are, I woke up this morning with my mind, stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, stayed on freedom. Slide. I woke up this morning with my mind, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So I'll go through it once, and then I'm sure you'll catch on to it. And we're just going to keep going, and we'll change the words up, but you can just follow along up there on the screen. And just before we begin, a big props to Joe Williams on the piano. Wonderful. So, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, y'all, stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So let's pick it up, right? I'm walking and talking with my mind, stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind, y'all, stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Nothing with my mind, stayed on freedom. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with my mind, y'all, stayed on freedom. Ain't nothing wrong with my mind, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Nothing dancing with my mind, stayed on freedom. I'm singing and dancing with my mind. Come on! Stayed on freedom. I'm dancing and dancing with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So not bad for your first time ever singing that song. Some of you. Okay, and I'm already warm. I got to turn on these fans, but we got another song coming up. Thank you so much for your tambourine and support. Next, it's called Come On, Come On, Come On. Don't you wanna go? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna go? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna go? Yes, I want to go. Next slide. and sing together. Don't you wanna go? Yes, I want to go. Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna vote? Yes, I want to vote. Here we go. Register somebody. Don't you wanna go? Just register somebody. Don't you wanna go? Register somebody. Don't you wanna go? Yes, I want to go. Oh, we had a whole other verse, but that's okay because I didn't press the next key. Welcome to the movement. Yeah. So to open us up, we have someone that helped to coordinate this alongside me and other staff members. Her name is Kia Moore, and she is an intern here at the Resource Center for Nonviolence. So give a round of applause for Kia.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kia, and I am a community studies student at the university. I'm here to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Poor People's Campaign. Now, what happened in the 1960s, people being removed from their jobs, cost of living increasing, children being taken away from their families. This is all prevalent and happening right now. This movement is for me. If I can tell you a little story right now about when I was younger than I am. My family drove past Willow Road in Menlo Park, and one day I remember Sun Microsystems vanished. I don't know if you guys know Sun Microsystems, but it was pre-Facebook. So soon after that, we were driving by and the Facebook thumb, so we just see the Facebook thumb. And so it's a symbol for how it got more expensive to live there. And so my family and I had to move to Oakland. And even here in Santa Cruz, the cost of living is still very hard to afford. So I think that these corporations and these contractors with the state are taking up way too much space in our community, and they contribute to a lot of wars and violence. And I'm here, thankfully, to spend my time celebrating with you a transformation to hopefully end it all. So I believe that we all have an abundance of resources within us to make transformations and nonviolent direct actions. I'm looking forward to the kinds of agreements we can make with each other in our human rights conditions, I believe all of our efforts will be translated into debunking the harmful acts of systematic discrimination. And nonviolence, what does that mean to me? It means that wherever we are and whatever we're doing, it is resisting. And the normalized criminality, we are resisting the normalized criminality of poor people. And this tells me that transformation involves in expressing change and transformation. So I've been working with the RCNB and working with Drew, who assists me in being more grounded in the process of what it takes to transform community. Now I'd like to introduce Drew again Drew Glover, who's been instrumental in providing the community liberation framework, and for this national movement to take place in Santa Cruz, California. He will be introducing also Santa Cruz community organizations who are the core in strategizing the base of this movement. So thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Thank you, Kia. I really appreciate that introduction. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out and thanks to all the people that have been involved in making this possible today, from the staff members like CB back there that's running the camera and helping with promotion, to Gabby who's there that's been helping with setting things up and preparing for planning and reaching out. Giving thanks to Joe Williams, playing the piano back there, managing sound at the same time. We have our amazing interpreter here, which is for ASL support. We have a translator here for people that need assistance in having Spanish translation. So if there's anyone here that does need Spanish translation and or know someone that does, if you could let myself know, or Michelle Gloa, who's sitting back there in the back, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, Michelle, just right back there. We have headphones for them to be able to listen to live translation in Spanish, so they can make that happen as well. So we open with song, right, which I don't know about you, it gets me going, which is really enjoyable and fun, and creates a sense of community and connection, even with total strangers that you might be next to. So it's something that I really enjoy, and I appreciate everyone that participated and began in it. We're here today, though, first of all, even before I even begin on that, because I just saw the word ancestors, and I do want to acknowledge that we are on occupied land right now of the Amamutsan tribal band that experienced massive amounts of oppression during colonialization and are still fighting diligently to protect the land and the air and the water of the surrounding area. So we must take a second and acknowledge them. And we're here today in the footprints of our ancestors, wherever they may come from, and especially those that have fought for us to be here today. People who fought and sometimes died for the rights and freedoms for others. People like Dorothy Day, who said, "We must talk about poverty because people insulated by their own comfort lose sight of it." And she reminded us that love casts out fear, but we have to get over the fear in order to get close enough to love. Or someone like Cesar Chavez, who said, "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about the progress and prosperity for our community." And also reminded us that our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others, for the sakes of theirs and for the sake of our own. And let us not forget Coretta Scott King, especially since we're here in the Resource Center for Nonviolence, so thank you all for being here. If this is your first time here, welcome. If it's not your first time here, welcome back. Coretta Scott King taught us that violence comes in many forms. She's famous for her quote, that letting a child starve on the street is violence. Punishing a mother and her family is violence. Discrimination against working people is violence. Ignoring the need for health care is violence. Ghetto housing is violence. And just like the contempt for poverty is violence. So we're here 50 years after Diane Nash and Rosa Parks and Joan Baez, who's a big supporter of the center, by the way, and Vayo LaRussa and my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King and Rabbi Herschel came together to build a coalition to address poverty in this country. And we're here to continue the movement today in Santa Cruz County. We must acknowledge our intersectionality and the need for unity, but as Dr. King put it, not uniformity. Because more often than not, those who support policies that promote greed are often the same people who support policies that are racist, or sexist, or fascist, or demean our fellow human being. So tonight we're going to talk about Santa Cruz City and the work that's being done in it. But just as we're all a part of this community, the city is a part of our county, just as we're a part of our state and just as we're a part of our country. So we're not acting only for the betterment of our own lives, but for the lives of our neighbors, the lives of our coworkers, and the lives of the people across the nation. But it's really about changing the narrative. I don't know, I've spoken with some of you about this already, but shifting our thought patterns from what will make us the most amount of profit to what will benefit the most amount of people. And it's a radical shift. Dr. King said we need not only a radical revolution of the way of our lives, but also a radical revolution of values. And this idea of breaking away from what we know as normal and challenging the idea of normalcy to try and make it so that we can move forward into a more inclusive and just future instead of what we're seeing right now. Some specific examples in Santa Cruz. When we have property in Santa Cruz listed for $5 million, where literally on the same block, people are sleeping and sometimes dying on the street, only to have people throw their hands up and tell them that if they can't afford to live here, they should just move somewhere else, even if they're people that are working 2 jobs and are still experiencing homelessness. If you ask me, that's immoral. In a recent article in the Sentinel, they cite that over 600 youth are living on the streets in Santa Cruz County without a parent or guardian. They call them unaccompanied youth. But we know that the surveying done in Santa Cruz misses a lot of people. So there could be upwards of over 1,000 unaccompanied youth around Santa Cruz County, or more, right? We have houseless advocates in the room here that might be able to give an even clearer detail as to how many people are experiencing homelessness and living outside. If you ask me, that's immoral. When we're cutting funding to community programs that provides nutritional programs for newborns, meals on wheels to the elderly, transportation to veterans that are trying to get to the VA, and family resource collectives to build outside entertainment tracks for mountain bikes, I feel like that's immoral. So the Poor People's Campaign in general, a national call for a moral revival, stands with the poor people of Santa Cruz County to transform politics as usual in our community and mobilize new voters and conduct a massive voter mobilization drive that will allow us to take power back and put it back in the hands of working people. It is developed out of many years of organizing across the United States, in communities across the country, people impacted by systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the war economy, and our distorted moral narrative has said the same thing. We want to be free. We need the Poor People's Campaign. We need a moral revival that makes this country great for so many for whom it has not yet been. This call echoes the cries of the prophets throughout the ages and stands up for justice, righteousness, and the dignity of all. Like I mentioned when we began, we're 50 years past when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and many others called for a revolution of values in America. They invited people who had been divided to stand together against the triplets of evil, militarism, racism, and economic injustice, to insist that people not die from poverty in the richest nation ever to exist. They sought to build a broad fusion coalition that would audit America, and together they would demand an accounting of promissory notes that had been returned marked insufficient funds. And today the effort is still incomplete. So that's why we say it's movement time. Welcome to the movement. If you wouldn't mind on that next slide for me, please. So this is our logo, if you see it anywhere. The next slide, please. So, like I mentioned before, we're going to hear from organizations that are actually doing some work in the community that are affecting some of the issues that I mentioned and some of the issues that I might have not mentioned. Save. So some of them, thank you, some of them that I might not have mentioned. First, if you wouldn't mind hitting that slide. Boom. We're gonna hear from Cosecha. So, yes, round of applause for Cosecha. This is Sam Alcina. Yes, Cosecha, you're more than welcome to come up to the podium and speak. You're more than welcome to sit there. Depends on if you prefer to stand or sit to speak. There we go.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. I'll talk a little bit loud. Hi, my name is Samantha. Thank you for being here and being in this space. It's awesome. So I realize not a lot of people may have heard of Cosecha before, so I just want to talk about a little bit of what it is and what we're about. So Cosecha, which translates into harvest, and also known as the Harvest Movement. It's a youth-led, immigrant-led, nonviolent national movement that is basically fighting for the permanent protection, dignity, and respect for all undocumented people in the U.S.
which numerically is about 11 million people. And so we recently just established in Santa Cruz County. It's a lot bigger on the East Coast, it's particularly in Boston, New York, even in Florida. So we do have a lot of work to do, and we're hoping to grow, but it's a start, and I'm very excited to see this coming to California and growing here. So recently we had the National Day of Action to abolish ICE this past July 30th. And so we did a particular action aimed at and directed at Amazon. And so we had an action outside of Whole Foods where we passed out pins. And if people are not aware, Amazon actually bought out Whole Foods. And Amazon has contracts and a relationship with a software company that's actually based in Silicon Valley. It's called Palantir. And so what Palantir and Amazon have developed, basically co-authored, is this kind of recognition program that basically identifies faces in the type of video surveillance that ICE uses to target and pick up people, or hoping to use, I guess. But the reason that we did that in particular, because we felt like in Santa Cruz, there is that sort of culture about like knowing where your stuff comes from. And I think that we specifically chose that because we know that the people who are going to Whole Foods care about what their money is going to. And something that I should mention as well is that Cosecha believes in massive economic non-cooperation. And so what I mean by that, thank you. What I mean by that is, you know, getting in mass quantities of people to get together and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to support that, right? And we don't dance with politicians, and that is one of our principles. We have principles, it's awesome. So that's something that we recently did, and we're hoping to grow our base around that and hopefully have continued actions around that. And you know, our ultimate goal eventually would to have a national boycott and not support these companies until they sever their federal contracts with ICE. And you know, like in this particular climate, that's extremely important. A lot of these companies support the day in and day out functions of the ICE administration. There's a lot of companies, Dell, Palantir, there's Chain Analysis, which has like, I want to say like over, I think it's almost like in the early millions, like the total of all the contracts, and they're based out of Palo Alto. And if there's anything that we need to know about Palo Alto, is that it's one of the most wealthiest like places ever. The economic inequity there is just like blasphemous. So that's another thing. But going back to my point is that we're very particularly involved in having that larger campaign to build here. And I'm very excited to be here because that's something that I feel like a lot of people are indirectly affected by, and people are indirectly supporting that, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Kia and I were both at the action that Samantha was talking about, and it was powerful to see the impact that this group of people was able to have. We turned away, I mean, at least from the people that I just personally saw, at least 10 people got turned away from Whole Foods after we had educated them about what was going on, and over 60 other people took the buttons and wore it inside at the same time. So, next.
Point it toward your mouth.
Well, the speaker's over here.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Either way, next is this one. So if you haven't heard about it, now you will hear about it. This is an organization that is amazing and almost needs no introduction. We have one of the original co-founders here with us, and he will let us know about the work that they do and how it relates to poverty and equity and all that fun stuff. So without further ado, Mr. Keith McHenry.
Thanks, Drew. So when I heard about the Poor People's Campaign, the new Poor People's Campaign, I was very excited and wanted to encourage all food bombs across the country to get involved. And a year ago in May, I ran into 6 people in the first weekend who came to eat with us who had just become homeless at the first of the month. And I've been feeding people, sharing food with people for 38 years, and at that time actually only 37 years. And I was quite shocked to see that number of people approach us and ask, where's the shelter, and and these kinds of things. And it was a shame that we really had relatively little other than food and blankets and the warming center. That was, once it got cold, you could go to that. But there was no, we said, oh, did you try the homeless service center? And they go, no, we did try that, but they had no room at the inn, so to speak. At the same time, I was reading Dorothy Day's granddaughter's book on her life, and I came across the chapter where it talked about how she decided to start what became the Catholic Workers Program. And what she had done was, as a young reporter for a radical newspaper out of Lower East Side, gone down to cover the first hunger march in Washington, D.C. And I thought I should look up newsreels and stuff about the hunger march. And in America, it's shameful that we have millions of people that go hungry. I think Second Harvest says it's about 43 million people don't know where their next meal is going to be. I know in New Mexico, which is one of the hungriest states, it's 17% of the population there doesn't know where their next meal is going to come from. And that this is something that we're seeing all across the United States. So more and more people are becoming homeless, more and more people are trying to stretch their budget by coming to Food Not Bombs, for example. And so I started to put out the idea to the National Coalition of the Homeless and other organizations that maybe we should have a national hunger march and just embarrass the America that they've got this. There are people that are actually going hungry in what's supposed to be the richest country in the world. And then the New Poor People's March started to take shape. And that, to me, I felt was really super important that Food Not Bombs get involved in that. And I know we have chapters all over the United States that are connected with their local New Poor People's Campaign and are working in solidarity. So I think Gene is still here. I think at the time that Food Not Bombs was, when I first came here, it was about 50, 60 people coming to eat every weekend. And now we sadly have regularly at the first of the month over 100 people. And by the last weekend of the month, we always have over 200 people come to eat at Food Not Bombs. And that's here in Santa Cruz. So we share food every Saturday and Sunday, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock at the downtown post office. And because we are out on the streets in a high visibility location, we're often the first place that poor people come to find out where they can get services, where they can maybe have access to, information on where to go apply for food stamps or to get signed up for Medicare or to, find out where the shelter is, these kinds of things. And so we see firsthand, even here in Santa Cruz at our meal, the level of poverty that is increasing, month by month. And we just had to serve food on Saturday and Sunday, and I was shocked at the number of people who were recently evicted on August 1st here in Santa Cruz and forced into searching for places to live and admitting that they're now living in their car and so we see this ever increasing number of poor people not only struggling to just survive and keep a roof over their house, but failing to keep a roof over their house and ending up finding that a car is their source of affordable housing. And in this, so today Food Not Bombs is not only in Santa Cruz in the United States, but we're actually in 1,000 cities of the world. And we're in over 65 countries. And we see that not only is the poverty increasing, we get photos of Food Not Bombs lines from people standing in line in Chicago or in DC that just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But also we're seeing this globally. And some of the Food Not Bombs chapters, I've been like in the Philippines, Davao Food Not Bombs have just celebrated its 16th anniversary. We've had chapter like Berkeley has served since 1989. So some of these chapters have gone on, many of them for years and years and years. And all of them report an increased number of poor people depending on them for food and for information on how to access services. And so I really feel that it's super important to get involved in the Poor People's Campaign. And there's wider attacks on poor people. As you know, there's a law here in Santa Cruz where it's illegal to sleep outside from 11 at night to 8:30 in the morning. And there's different police responses to that. And sometimes they're like laying off, and sometimes there's been like massive pressure to wake people up and get them to move along in the middle of the night. And then statewide, we're under threat. It turns out that on the 15th of August will be the 30th anniversary of the original arrest of Food Not Bombs, the very first arrest for sharing free food at Golden Gate Park. And it's possibly one of the first arrests in the United States of anyone being arrested for feeding the hungry. And that ultimately, that campaign by the city of San Francisco resulted in 1,000 arrests over a course of 8 years. And the last 750 arrests were for felony conspiracy to serve food in violation of a court order. And our resistance actually helped protect other cities, but there was arrests in Arcata, California, and then arrests down in Los Angeles, and then arrests throughout like many parts of Florida. There's been threats of arrest in Sacramento. El Cajon just was facing threats of arrest. There was Fort Lauderdale has been arrested. They have lawsuits there for the right to feed the hungry in that city. Tampa has been arrested many times over the decades for feeding the hungry. Orlando, Florida. There's, according to the National Coalition on the Homeless, there's 70 cities in the United States that have banned or limited the sharing of free food. And in California, there's a proposed law which would make it very difficult for groups like Food Not Bombs to feed the hungry, and that's AB 2178. And so I have literature out on the table about this law, which would have very stringent rules and regulations for people feeding the hungry outside, and it would actually make it expensive and very difficult for many, many people to provide free food to the hungry outside. So that's one of the campaigns Food Not Bombs is currently working on. We hope to see you at the meals on the weekends.
Woo! Thank you, Keith. Yes, definitely go and check them out if you have not already been to one of their food distributions. It's a magical experience of just a combination of different community members and delicious food. Next slide will bring us to the Greater Purpose Community Church. Hooray! So the Poor People's Campaign is rooted heavily in the idea of spirituality and to a lesser extent religion. It's this idea of the belief in a greater power focusing towards justice. Dr. King referred to it as the universe is on the side of justice, or the moral arc of the universe is long, right? But it is on the side of justice. So we felt that it was not only important but valuable to have the perspective of someone in that realm of spiritual and religious orientation to speak to the work that that congregation is doing around these issues of poverty, inequity, oppression. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Christopher Van Hall from the Greater Purpose Community.
So my name is Christopher Van Hall. If you've watched anything concerning the Poor People's Campaign, you would probably see Dr. William Barber in these videos. He is an amazing leader. He's also a minister in our denomination. So when Drew asked me to be involved with this, I was really excited because it's something that our denomination is very proud of. We're very proud of the work that he is doing. He's an incredible leader, and I'm very proud of all of you, and especially Drew for picking up this campaign and leading this movement here. For me, I can tell that like when the word church or Christianity is mentioned, like people's hackles go up, and people are pissed at Christianity for all the right reasons. So let me open up and say that. So if you hate church, I get it. Because what church has become is a place that is known for rhetoric that is anti-woman, anti-LGBTQ, pro-war, pro-guns for some reason, even though they didn't have guns in the Bible. I don't really get that one. And pro-capitalism. All of which aren't in the Bible or are things really horrible ideas that are the result of decades bad theology in this country and twisting the scripture to fit a hate-filled rhetoric, and that's a problem. We continually ask ourselves as a board of leaders, what can we do to address that? So our church is open and affirming LGBTQ, we're all about conservation, we are feminist, we are anti-capitalist. Yeah, we've got some people here that are in our church, they're very proud of that. But I don't want us to get credit for the work that's being done in Santa Cruz because we support it the best we can, but the real heroes are the people that are on the streets, that are doing the good work of social justice here, and we try to support that in whatever way that we can. So for us, again, church was a movement of bringing wholeness to a fractured world. It was a movement for conservation, it was a movement for liberation, equity, and justice, and we were trying to capture those ideals at our church and connect with folks that believe in the same ideals in the community. We don't really care what they believe because for us, our faith is less about what you believe and more about what you do. Jesus wanted followers of a way of life, not a group of people that were brainwashed with dogmatic, systemic religious beliefs, right? So again, we're open and affirming, we're all for science, we embrace it, we believe in evolution, and for us, one thing that we can do is donate half of the donations that we get on Sunday to local organizations that are doing good work like Homeless Garden Project, Planned Parenthood, Save Our Shores, and the like. And that was a beautiful idea. The problem is people can't afford to donate in a city that they have to pay, $3,200 a month to put a roof over their family's head, right? Like all their money justifiably goes to taking care of their family. So we thought as a church, what can we do? So inspired by companies like Tom Shoes and Trappist monks like Chimay that make beer and they donate the profits to provide orphanages throughout Europe, we looked at the resources that we had available, and we had a building that said 300 people and we were a church of 50 people, so we were like, we don't need that. So we sold the building, and we are opening a brewery restaurant in Santa Cruz that is going to give divide its profits between local community service organizations like Planned Parenthood, Homeless Garden Project. So a place where customers can hopefully come in and not only be customers, but also be a source of charity. You'll actually be able to select from a rotating menu of local charities that you want to support, and at the end of the month we'll take those numbers and we'll divide up the funds that are going to charity based on what you want those funds to go to. So you'll actually have not only a food menu but a charity menu as well. And that's pretty much what we do. We want to fund people that are doing good work in Santa Cruz, because the one consistent theme that we've seen in Santa Cruz is people are telling us, hey, we've got volunteers, people are donating material goods, but what we need in an area that is becoming more and more economically unjust is funding. So we figured that that's what we can do, get funds to people that are doing, fundamentally amazing, and in my mind, theologically sound work in Santa Cruz. So that's it.
I'm sure you all have a lot of great questions, so we'll have a question and answer session towards the end of the evening as well. But next on the agenda of epicness is we have, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the conversation around housing in Santa Cruz, and I mentioned a little bit in my opening statement about housing in Santa Cruz. But we have multiple people here that are involved in the movement, and one of them up here on the stage, Cynthia Berger, who is a rep for the Santa Cruz Tenants Association, and may be speaking to the movement for housing justice, but I'm not sure. So if you hit the next slide for me, Kia, we can see a beautiful picture of Cynthia here holding a rent control banner, which is wonderful. This was the day that they turned in the over 10,000 signatures that they needed only 5,700 of to get it on the ballot. So a moment of victory here, captured in still frame. So without further ado, Cynthia Berger from Santa Cruz Tenants Association.
Thank you. It was such a relief to get that part of their campaign over. You know, it was fun, but now we have to walk and knock on people's doors and actually talk to them more. And that's more fun. So I'm Cynthia. I grew up here and I lived here, brought my son up here, and I found myself living in my car when I was about 58. And I was looking around, I was looking at myself, how did I get here? And so I started to look into, how I got here was I had a job and I lost the job and I lived in another city and I decided to come back where I was from, but it was hard to find a job and I was having trouble walking. So I found friends where I could park my van. And I started learning about housing. And I decided I wanted to spend time with renters because I'm a renter and I always have and probably always will be. And I found out about organizing tenants because I started thinking, well, the only way, who's going to help tenants? Landlords aren't going to step up and help tenants. Tenants have to help themselves. So I started looking at, are tenants organized? And tenants aren't very organized. And then I founded an organization called Tenants Together. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting because Tenants Together purports to be for the whole state of California instead of a little area. Because there are a lot of little tenant organizations, and I found when I would click on their website, really it hadn't been written on for years. And so, I realized it's balkanized, it's not a big movement, but wow, something's coming down the pike here because if I'm homeless and I'm looking around here at the housing costs and stuff, this is coming along. So I called Tenants Together. I just learned some things from a wonderful organizer up there, and I said, I want to organize tenants, and he said, you should do that. I said, maybe I should do it in San Jose. They don't have any organization. He said, no, you should just do it where you are. You're in Santa Cruz. So I decided to start a website. And I was on unemployment, so thank you, unemployment. And I started my website, and I got a Google Voice number, and I started going around town publicizing a tenants' rights hotline. I was pretty much a neophyte. I didn't know a lot about it, but I was learning. I had some great mentors from Tenants Together, and I was reading a lot. And so it turned out that one of my son's friends from elementary school is now a tenant lawyer in San Francisco, and so he was able to take my calls and help people I was helping. So anyway, I started a hotline. So Santa Cruz Tenants Association is really me. And I was hoping that, I would organize a lot of tenants and have a big organization. And I did go and meet with groups of tenants here and there and who are having issues. And this was like in 2014, 2015, a lot of gentrification was starting to happen. And I was getting contacted by folks in the lower ocean area. And so anyway, I got my chops, just volunteering and going to the city council now and then, but not too much because I didn't want to be known as a gadfly that nobody listened to. But now and then I would go to the city council, but I never purported to speak for tenants because that's not really a real thing. But I do have a hotline. So on my hotline, I get calls every day, and they've been increasing as, people know I'm around, and I give, I guess, reasonable enough advice because these folks at nonprofits that are making a nice salary refer people to me all the time, and I do it for free. I'm like, all right, But so as I've seen in the last few years, the number of people calling and crying, and I listen, like I say, the basic phone call I ever do is a half hour. It's not less than a half hour because I need to listen to the person and find out what's going on. And yeah, I've had a lot of people, men and women, cry over the past few years because they lived there in their place for a long time, and this is the long-term tenants that have been kicked out. And these are the people whose landlords were older and they had a reasonable rent. And there's probably thousands of them because I myself I have 700 or 800 people on my email list. And so I got, I would estimate there's thousands and thousands of people who have been displaced here in the last 3 years. And as the number of calls started to pick up in the last 3 years, and the trauma and the crisis of the people, they're just not prepared, and I so understood. Because when I came back here I was in Palo Alto, and I was in my car, and I was looking at the rental prices, I thought, I'll never be able to afford living in a house again. What am I gonna do? And it's very, very, very frightening. And then I really got really angry about that. And I was like, there's thousands of people like me. And when the city does things like, the city will give the Hyatt Hotel a big tax break because it's in a blighted area. And that area, by the way, is still quite blighted after they put the hotel in. And then that hotel comes here with its big tax break, and it hires people that, I know one of, people who work at hotels, and they got a trick on the side. These are women with babies. They have to trick on the side to make enough money to, live here. They do what they can. Not everybody does that, but some hotel maids are gonna do some tricking on the side on Lower Ocean area. That happens. But so here's the city, and these hotels are paying people an unlivable wage, but maybe they should have a place in the hotel where they could live, And the city just has been doing a lot of giveaways to corporations, and even Costco. They were very happy to have Costco. I have to admit I shop there sometimes, but people were afraid they would put local places out of business, and those are local renters. But so I digress here, and I did want to mention that though, that there are a lot of poor people working in the tourism industry in Santa Cruz that are living out of their cars if they have a car. Is it 10? All right, yes. So just one last thing I want to talk about, that tenants are homeless people, and homeless people are tenants. Last week a homeless person was a tenant, and next week they might be a renter. And there's really not a border there, an artificial border. We just have to remember we could all be without a shelter, and shelter is really a human right. But if you live in your vehicle here, then you're a felon for trying to have shelter. Affordable housing is illegal, because if you live in your vehicle, you're a felon, or you're not a felon, but you're a criminal for living in your vehicle, which is your shelter. And a lot of people shelter in their vehicles here. So there's a concerted movement that makes me angry to move poor people out of Santa Cruz and replace us, good people who happen to be poor, and we are expendable. That's the exact quote from the Sentinel letters. And that makes me really angry, and that keeps me fighting for tenants and improving their rights and working for rent control too. Thank you.
It's gonna be awesome. Okay. So just a quick thing. In February, because of the actions and work done by tenant advocates and tenants in the city council passed the temporary rent freeze and just cause eviction rules, which are essentially what's on the ballot with a little bit extra language this November. And if it wasn't for them, I would currently be scrambling for a place to live with the potential of being homeless on the 1st of September. So, because the eviction I was getting served was illegal based off of those protections. So the work that is happening is actively impacting people's lives. And it was Cynthia that I called to talk about the situation, and she's the one that told me that it was going to be legal. So props to her. So the next slide we're gonna skip because they're gonna be at the next one. This is Barras Unidos, they're amazing. But now we're gonna break for a second because I know that was a lot of talking. And we're gonna listen to some spoken word. You may know this individual from the activism world and maybe the internet world, maybe the Bay Area hip hop world. Either way, his name is Isaac Collins, also known as Lyrical Eye, and he's been willing to bless us with a spoken word piece. So you can use this mic, you can use that mic, come up here.
Hello everybody, my name is Isaac Collins. I wrote this poem when I was 22 years old. It represents what's going on right now, so I'm going to recite it for you. And then I'm going to recite another piece that is not written, that is a freestyle piece. So here we go. I see poverty on the streets in California. Kids and adults sleeping under churches and rooftops and cars because the rent is too high and they can't find a place to live. I've been a part of those conditions myself. Lost my place to live, had to sleep in my car, and still sleeping in my car. I watch mothers work many different jobs and lose their place to live and have someone foreclose on their homes. I've seen children trying to survive, doing what they could to do the best they could and not be caught in no more situations like this. I see poverty in California because I was born here. I watch fathers be in prison for many different years and then come back home still in prison working these jobs but not getting paid enough to survive. I see poverty everywhere. I see people that are barely trying to make it in Santa Cruz and trying to find decent housing when the rent is getting higher every single year since I've been here since 2006. I watched the rent raise every year from $500 to $600 to $700 to $800 to $1,000. It's crazy. I see poverty every single day I wake up. And I try to find a way to find peace out of this. But sometimes it gets me because I'm affected by the same situations and I'm just honest with it. I see poverty so much that sometimes I cry because I'm trying to do something positive for those ones that feel the same way I do. Thank you. I got one more. This is just completely off the top. I give respect and honor to all the community organizations that are out there trying to make this change. I honor them because I've seen them in the community every single day since I've been here. I won't name any of those names, but I'll tell you that some of those organizations have saved my life when I had nothing. They gave me hope to volunteer for all of them. I'm a product of my environment, but I am trying to make something out of my environment with my art. I share my talent on street corners every single year in Santa Cruz and inspire those kids that have no place to give them some art in Santa Cruz. I try to find my balance to find peace when sometimes it's really hard to sleep. I lose nights of not sleeping because I'm tired of sleeping in my car. And I don't want to sleep in my car no more, but I don't want to pay this rent anymore. And I don't want to keep on paying this rent when they're driving out the local artists like me. See, I wish they can support our community a little bit more. I wish it could just be more than just talking, really just about walking and about keeping the actions and supporting your community and not being two-faced in the community. See, I'm just being honest because we're all poor. Some of us won't even talk about it, but when you wake up in the morning and you're barely making it and your check's getting check by check, and that paycheck is one paycheck from losing your paycheck, then you feel how we feel every single day when we're trying to find decent rest. See, I walk in these streets in Santa Cruz. I feel these streets. And when I sleep sometimes in Santa Cruz, I see the same people just like you and me that are just trying to wake up and have no one harass them so they can have a decent place to rest. Because it's really hard to sleep in Santa Cruz when you don't have a decent bed to sleep in every night.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. If you don't know him, check him out. If you haven't met him, meet him before you leave. Look him up online. Check out his stuff. He's the people that we need to support in our community. So, now that we're done with the spoken word, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please, Q. Oh, well, there he is. I guess I was one slide behind. So now we're going to transition into a moment of testimony where we're going to hear from at least one community member about their experiences being poor in Santa Cruz and working to survive. It's someone that I went to high school with.
Junior high.
And junior high with. I went to
Harvard.
Harvard and Charlotte, right?
I didn't go to Harvard.
Oh, and I went to elementary school with Cynthia's son that she was talking about too. So connected community, right? We want to keep the people in town, but you're going to hear from someone who was born and raised in?
Born in the mountains, raised in town.
Born in the mountains, raised in town, and the reality of life. So without further ado, I'd love for us all to give a huge and warm welcome to Pearl Humphrey.
Hello, I'm nervous. I'm a crybaby if you guys haven't noticed. Up here, because a lot of this resonates with me.
It's okay.
So I'm a mom of two. I have two great boys. And I've lived here pretty much all my life. And I was living up the street for a good 4+ years in a house. Great relationship with my landlord. Decided to go back to college. I was like, I can do this now. You know, my kids are steady. I'm in a steady place. I'm in a good place in my life. And a couple months into the semester, I get a notice from my landlord that I need to be out by December 31st. This is fall 2017. I'm like, I can do this. I can still go to school and finish the semester and find a house and be a full-time mom, and I run my own massage business, and I volunteer in our community, and sure, I can hunt for houses as I take this first full-time semester at Cabrillo. So I'm looking throughout the semester, and I'm just not finding anything. And I'm 33 now, 2 kids in Santa Cruz, trying to up my career. And I wrote notes, but I'm really not following them. And I get A's and B's for the first time in my life. I'm like, okay, December 16th, okay, I'm gonna bust my ass and find a house before the 31st. No luck. I meet these landlords. I've looked at probably 200 houses in the last 8 months. No joke, like literally like 200. Oh, you have Section 8? Oh, we really liked you, but we're not gonna work with you. Really, I have this great letter from my landlord that says that I've lived here for over 4 years and been a great tenant and didn't destroy your house and because I'm low income, okay. So I asked for an extension of my landlord, and she gives it to me. I'm really grateful. I ended up living there until February, where my backup plan is Santa Cruz Shelter. I'm like, don't have the support. I'm just me raising my 2 kids. So I get into the Reveille shelter. I stayed there once before when my 8-year-old was 1. He turned 1 at the shelter. And I'm sorry, yeah, 1. He turned 1 at shelter. And I've been housed since he was 2. I didn't expect to ever go back there. Well, it's a lot different these days. They now allow you to do drugs. It's okay to do drugs there. They have housing first new policies. So before it was a safe environment, I felt, so I thought it was a good backup plan. But not this time. There are kids running around at 2, 3 in the morning. I'm assuming high with their parents. Like, my kids go to bed at 7:38. I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, get my kids ready, leave, and be out there by 7:30, and come home by 7. And I exposed my kids to things I never thought that I would there. And I just wasn't comfortable with what was allowed there. They say that they support you to find housing there, and you'll have a meeting with a worker once or every other week, and that's not an existent service there. So I have this illness that mirrors migraines. It's called CVS, cyclic vomiting syndrome. It's great. Instead of getting headaches, I throw up for days on end. So I think my body decides to get stressed out after everything's okay. I signed a lease for this family's in transition house. I can live there for a year. I signed it on the 20th of last month. And that night, my body decided, okay, instead of being like relieved, I'm going to be stressed out and I'm going to give you a bout. So I ended up throwing up for the next 12 days after that. I called the shelter the Tuesday that I was supposed to meet with the manager about me moving out. Told him that I was really sick. And I couldn't make it. I'm not abandoning my stuff. Please don't throw my stuff away. I go on Saturday the 28th to pick up some nausea medicine because I was out from my last trip to the ER. I go every couple days to get some fluid when I'm going through that. It's really fun to have 2 kids and try to go to the ER in the middle of the night. So I showed up at the shelter on the 28th, exactly a week after I got my keys, with calls from my friends and my mom telling them my daughter's sick, my friend's sick, please don't touch my stuff. And I walk into a room where somebody threw cereal, marshmallow cereal, but my kids even eat that stuff. And it was all over the room, but all my belongings were gone. And I go downstairs and I'm like, where's my stuff? And they're like, oh, protocol is to put it in a closet, but not my stuff apparently. Like, my jewelry box and my kids' teeth and my wedding ring in it, and like, I'm a big girl, so I wear Torrid. It's expensive, like 10 years worth of Torrid collection. So all my kids' stuff, his ukulele, everything we've ever had, baskets from baby showers, gone. With no explanation of why they threw my stuff away, so they say. So, yeah, my experience in the shelter was not what I had expected it to be. Yeah, so I'm looking for permanent housing still. I can move out of this house at any time if I find a house with Section 8 voucher, but I can live there up to a year if I don't find something. I feel like I really have to look for a house in over a month. I just feel like every time I go, it doesn't matter how good I look on paper. As soon as I hear Section 8, it's just a no. It's what's enabled me to find a place. It's like a double-edged sword. You have this resource that's like, okay, and then my rent's going to be subsidized by Section 8. I have a business, I work, I go to school, I volunteer in community, but because the money's not coming directly from me, no is the answer. What else to say, or if I'm making any sense? Taking some recent trips trips to Portland, I feel like Portland is everything that Santa Cruz says that we represent, but they actually take it and put it into action. I'd love to see us go and model some stuff from there. One of the people that I go and visit, she runs all the farmers markets there and is a food activist and tells me about these amazing things. She's a single mom herself. She just got custody of her daughter after, and now she's a single mom. Anyways, $70 a month, she goes to this pantry where dented cans are and fruit that's imperfect and stuff, and she goes and she can take whatever her family needs, $70 a month. Once a week she can go, and she feeds her family that way. Portland is so, they just want to break the socioeconomic gap that kids have to experience when you have richer kids and poorer kids, and kids can't do everything that the richer kids can do. They have a program where you just show your EBT card with no an EBT card. I took my kids to a museum for $3 each by showing my California EBT card that would have cost me $37 to get in and show my kids a good time for the afternoon. I would just love to see Santa Cruz, or even bigger, California, model something towards kids. Kids don't deserve to have to feel the effect of us struggling. I'm poor, but my kids don't know this. They live such a rich life. And we live somewhere that you can provide that without a lot of money, but the little other things would be just so great to be supplemented for families that just can't provide that for their kids. Anyways, I hope I made some sense. Thank you for listening.
So it's movement time, right? It's movement time. The fact that people are experiencing these kinds of things in our city is unacceptable. The fact that people are experiencing these things in our state is unacceptable. And the fact that people are experiencing things in our country are unacceptable. So it's movement time, right? We need people like yourselves that are spending your time here to listen and learn, to actively get engaged and plug into the movement and use your energy to fight against policies that make this reality a possibility, right? We need to hold elected officials accountable and do that through massive voter mobilization drives and, what's next? Oh, song. So, let's just take a second and give another round of applause to Pearl for sharing. So that's what song also does, right? Because that was a moment of vulnerability and openness to share with the community, to let them know the realities. And now we're going to give our energy back to Pearl by singing together, right? This song is called Everybody's Got the Right to Live. And it is the theme song of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival on a national level. You can find it online. They have these great challenges where you should record it and send it into them. So we may do it for this one, what we do in an ongoing for the other one. But it goes, everybody's got the right to live, twice. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got the right to live. So take us away, maestro. Set that beat. Where's the camera? There's another one over there if anyone wants it. So what kind of pretend do you think? Everybody's got the right to live. Here, wait, no, wait. I'm not a musician. I can't sing and tambourine at the same time, as you can obviously tell. But we do have a musician on the panel. So. can literally change that word to so many different things. We could go on for like 30 minutes singing that song. And that's what I love about all of these songs. If you don't notice already, you can change just a small amount. It changes the meaning. We can keep the beat and move forward. And we're always looking for more people because obviously I'm not the best sing leader in the world. So I would love it for people that are interested in joining the campaign on a musical level to come and show me your stuff so that you can put me to shame and lead everyone in an amazing song and cheer. So now I gave you a little bit in the beginning, a 3x5 card. Who's got it? All right, I also distributed randomized pens amongst the group. And some of you have them, some of you already had them, didn't have them. So those 3x5 cards are for two things. One, you can use them to write your questions on, right? I hope you didn't write any important notes because I'm going to take them back from you. But you can use them to write your question on so you don't forget them. But then also, we're asking you to take the pledge, right? There's this saying, who among you will take the pledge? And it's this idea. I know there's more pens and more cards back there in case you didn't get them and you came in after we distributed them. But they're over there. Joe Williams has a pen over here as well. The aspect of this campaign is not only to educate people and raise awareness about the issues of poverty and the poor in our community and in the county, but also to run a massive voter mobilization drive, voter registration drive, and just as importantly, nonviolent direct action. So if you're interested in getting involved, specifically in nonviolent direct action, but you can always make a little notation with your contact information, if you would please put your name, contact information, preferably a phone number and an email on the back of that card, and a note that you are willing to participate in nonviolent direct action. You'll be contacted by the Resource Center for Nonviolence through our nonviolent direct action trainings, and we'll be building an ongoing movement of people being trained in nonviolent direct action so that as this campaign continues, because this isn't something that's going to end in November at this next election, this is an ongoing campaign that will last many years with the focus of building power throughout the county, addressing and negotiating policy changes with our elected officials, and demanding that change happen, either through negotiation or dramatic direct action, which will then ideally turn back into negotiation, which will then turn into reconciliation, where we can make everything better for everybody, right? So you have those cards. Take a second, think about it. Think about a question you might have for your panel, because I made this slide deck this morning, so I think the next slide is Q&A. But what's next? Hey, all right. So now we have our Q&A session. We have all of our panelists up here. This is also the time, if you want, to share your own testimony of being poor in the city of Santa Cruz. You can talk about work that you do and how it affects the poor. You can talk about being poor and how the work affects you. You can talk about questions from the movement. I'm up here to field questions from the movement. Same with Kia, who's been doing a lot of fantastic research about the Poor People's Campaign, both past and present. And then any of our panelists up here, from Pearl's personal testimony to Cosecha, Food Not Bombs, Santa Cruz County Association, and Greater Purpose Community Church. So we have about 20 minutes, which is great because I was worried we were going to be over. But we have about 20 minutes to field questions, hear from people, and then we have one last song. So don't go anywhere. But let's go. Who's got some hands?
I have a question.
Yeah, Alan. And if you want, you're more than welcome to come to the mic. Otherwise, you can just yell.
I'm a teacher, I can use my voice.
There you go.
I'd like to know what the national direction for the Poor People's Campaign, where is it going? Are there any kind of mass mobilization efforts in place, or are we just part of, a small part of a, kind of a, if you do a balkanized movement?
Right. So we are a small chapter, which is a part of the California chapter, which is a part of the national movement. And recently, we've been in communication specifically with the California chapter coordinator, as well as the Orange County coordinator, and there are some other ones in different cities that we have written down on a separate document. They're having a meeting of organization leads on the 18th of this month, so next Saturday. North of here, I have the information in a text message on my phone, at which I, as the chair of the local chapter, have been invited to go to learn about phase 2 of the national campaign. So we'll be updating people at our next town hall, and these town halls, just so that y'all know, because I didn't mention it in the beginning, will take place once a month, but not here. The idea is to build equity and a diversity of representation across the county. So we'll be having the town halls in 6 different locations between San Lorenzo Valley and Watsonville to make sure that we can have organizations and programs in those specific areas talk to those specific residents, people in those specific areas talking about their specific experiences, but also giving people from around the county the opportunity to essentially tour the county and the issues that are facing the different people there to find out how they can plug in. So the next one's going to be next month on the first Thursday of the month, which is probably the ongoing thing we're going to be doing. The first Thursday of the month from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Health Center in Watsonville. It's by the airport. I have the specific information. No, it's the other one. I can pull it up. While I figure this out, any other questions? That was a great question, Alan. We'll find out the next one. Randa and then Richard.
I have something that I'd like you to bring to that meeting. I think that if the Poor People's Campaign supported Postal Banking, we could get all these people, get the payday lending gone, and get people who are unbanked or underbanked, and have a place right in their own community and save the post office. So that's something, that's an idea I'd like you to bring there if you go next week to that meeting.
Wonderful, and then just so that y'all know, postal banking, what Randa is talking to, is back in the old days, people used to do their banking in the post office. And it kind of decentralizes the banking structure so that there's no giant private banks, and it's all done through the post office. It's kind of like a state bank.
Yeah, it's a form of like bank.
Yeah, so a great way to divest from fossil fuels and bring down the big banks a notch or two. Right? So I'll definitely bring that to the next meeting, but let's connect before then so I have the right language for it as well. Kia, want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, I was asking, are you looking for the,
Push the button on the
are you
mic.
looking for the next position for the next town hall?
No, I'm looking for the name of it. Do you remember?
Oh, the Bahara Valley Health Trust?
There we go. I'm looking at my phone and Kia knows it all along. So the Bahara Valley Health Trust is where the next one will be. And we'll definitely bring that. Randa will connect. Richard was next, and then the gentleman here.
So you who don't know me no more, Richard, I'm Grandpa.
Yeah,
I want to speak personally. For 20 years, I've lived on Social Security. I'm 82 years young. I live in a shack with no doors, but I'm an activist, and I'm a damn good one. And so from a personal place, no room in the inn, but I'm going to produce a place where I invite all of you to come to the Civic Auditorium and join in a very free experience with mariachis and dancers coming up here. I'm looking for a place to hold a meeting on the 27th. I'd love to talk to someone. I don't know if Peter or Drew's going to give us a location or not. But what I want to say is your answer is Mother Jones took an hour in Berkeley. Go to free TV and see this national movement. It's powerful. Because we have a pastor here, we have 125 churches. So I hope that beyond all of this, and great job, Peter, I'd like to revisit what took place at the police room. Those of you who remember the women who came for planetary peace, we have the power in the room. I was one of them. We got to get to know each other. So I'm going to be around. I'm going to see what we can do to create a youth power movement at Cabrillo. If any of you are students, be a stand for what I represent. A next generation commission. Here's a former guy who ran to be president of Cabrillo, and he had a social justice club. How about youth power as a club? Connect to UC, connect there. Now, I don't want to be up there, because we already got the team. If I'm at 82, live in a shack in a backyard with 13 other people, if I can see that of a place for 13 people in Santa Cruz for rent under $2,000, how come the 125 churches in the Jewish temple can't do the same? Please be a stand for Peter, for Drew, and this building. And go to this, please, if you're at all concerned with something planetary. Jalisco International Federation on Facebook, and see how we can build a bridge from Santa Cruz with Peter and his movement because the next president of Mexico is unlike anybody who's ever come. And we don't have the Latinos here. I represent people from Oaxaca, Jalisco, Colombia, and I appreciate, I don't want money. I have my quarterback, not that others won't listen. Ted Burke owns the Shadowbrook. He owns the Crow's Nest, and you probably never heard of it. From the kitchen to the boardroom. Let's have 20 kids who are on probation show us what they can do. Not a capitalism place, but a co-op. Let them own it. And so Drew and I go back a long time. I respect him.
Right back at you, big guy.
Thank you, Drew. I
Back to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael.
Hi, Michael.
I'm just a little confused coming into this whole situation because I see like a lot of compelling stories from you and inspirational words from you and your community. I'm just confused as to what the motives are, because we know what our problem is, right? Our problem is, poverty, the rental situations are bad, we can't even afford food a lot of the time.
Right.
So what are the solutions to those problems for the movement, instead of just pledging to something I don't know about? I don't know.
Absolutely. So like I mentioned before, it's going to be all about voter mobilization, political awareness, and engagement, right? Because right now, the reason why we are where we're at is because of poorly structured policies that benefit a certain demographic of people and not the general commonwealth, right? All of the wealth is being funneled into a specific space. The housing that's being developed here is being built for a specific type of people. The environments is being destroyed for the benefit of a small few while impacting the many, right? And so the idea is to get people involved, because a lot of people, and that's what the national movement is all about, is everyone complains. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is bad. Oh, no one's doing it. Oh, we should change things. But then when it comes time to actually change things, people aren't at the polls. They aren't out there mobilizing people to vote. They aren't educating them about the changes in the policy they need to have happen. And in turn, we have low voter turnout. And statistics prove that when people turn out, and there's actually a large number of people that vote, then progressive ideologies that benefit the Commonwealth win in elections. So the goal of this is to share the work that's being done, shine a light on the realities of the poor in our different communities, especially people that were born and raised in the area that are struggling to survive, and then use that energy and that awareness to kick people into gear and then go out and make change in the county.
And I guess that segues into my next question, because housing, okay, so we have a shortage of housing. There's 72,000 roughly people live in Santa Cruz. We have about, according to statistics in the area, about 106,000 living units. An average city that's had comfortable rent prices and comfortable living, humane living situations has 3 times that population. So we don't have enough living units. And the city council continues to push low impact, policy, which means essentially if you're going to be building something, you're going to have to spend millions of dollars. And it can only be 3 stories high, and maybe 4 or 5, but you have to be a buddy with somebody for that to make sense. And then, so you have the council basically pretending to be, and put in place these liberal, intentioned ideas, which are really in reality totally corrupt, because it's not for saving the deers across the creek. It's for keeping the value high of the limited housing so that they can sell. I just saw in 2017 Time magazine, Santa Cruz is the most expensive place to live in the United States. It is the 4th in the world.
The reason for that is because the wages here are so low. That's one of the other reasons besides the shortage of housing that's manufactured by over the years here.
And then we also have the issue, well, we could raise wages, but then in turn, what kind of issues is that going to cause to the private market, especially when the tax for the employers are so high, which is also another policy of the council. They just raised sales tax to 9.25%.
Well, our wages are 60% lower than Santa Clara County, and I think that they could raise them quite a bit without having damage to their businesses.
The wages.
60%. lower here. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the last many quarters.
Even with the wages being lower, it doesn't just impact people that are, minimum wage. I mean, I am an ally, but at this point, with luckily my wife's job, she has a great job, and we would be upper middle class in any other city. And we were paying $3,600 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that I would pay $800 a month for back home. So at this point, people talk about this problem, but people that are suffering in the housing movement, this is canary in the coal mine stuff, right? And when the canary drops, you don't kick the canary and say, hey, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, you get the hell out of the coal mine. So this isn't just gonna affect people that are minimum wage. So I don't know that wages are just the issue because it's such a complex issue. But what this movement is about, and Drew said this before, and I love this statement, is it's not about right versus left. Initially, it's about mobilizing conversation and a dialogue and a gathering that talks about right versus wrong. And it's about everybody seeing their common place in this growing economic disparity that's coming down the pipeline in this country. So to answer your initial question, I think this is about bringing people to the table from all political and socioeconomic backgrounds to see that this injustice is growing and it's going to be affecting all of us. And then once we have a mass movement, it's about not only deconstructing polarization at the polls, but it's about mobilizing folks to get out and vote. So I hope that makes sense. I've been working all day. And so,
I'd like to reply to that. I never wanted to imply that the liberal policy or liberal ideal is wrong. I was just saying that it's crony.
Sure.
They're pretending to be liberal and have good intentions in order to pass terrible things. And wages, I hear you on that. At the same time, I feel like what he said resonated more with me is it doesn't matter how much you earn, you're still going to be living in a room with mold in the bathroom, asbestos in the ceiling, and sharing it. It's like eternal teenhood. It's eternal,
And God forbid you tell your landlord that because they're going to kick you out.
Well, not only a bad habitability, I know a couple, their combined income's $120,000. They both have nice jobs. They have 3 young children. They live in a very nice house, but they are, the house is going to be sold, and they certainly can't buy it, or they'd like to. And they can't save any money for their future, and they're not going to have any money for their children's education or their retirement, even on that income, and renting a nice place in Santa Cruz at a reasonable price. So yeah, it's not only the wages, and I will be putting their interview on the website of Santa Cruz Senate so you can hear it live to Santa Cruz.
I believe the Bay Area, the minimum, the lower class is now $116,000 a year annually for a family. That's a problem. I mean, if a full-time low-wage restaurant worker, or not low-wage, but you know what I mean. Somebody like lower level in an industry comes in and they work full-time and they can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment and a used car that's run down. Something's wrong in the society. So I hear you, absolutely.
And just to, and my friend, just to bring it back to what I was saying earlier with the need to reprioritize and change the narrative, some of the things you brought up about, housing development, the city council rezoning the commercial or the residential property where that Hyatt was built. It used to be residential, so that could be a housing complex right there, but they approved it to build that high for a hotel, but not for a housing facility that's closer. The idea of prioritizing the budget, right? So we've seen a 25% increase approximately in salary pay in the city, but a decrease in community service programs. That's an example of prioritization. And then also, we mentioned the sales tax and the fiscal emergency that they're claiming that they're having, while at the same time the city manager made over $1.3 million over the last 5 years, and the financial director who is directing the finance into the fiscal emergency made over $1 million over the last 5 years. So it has a quick question. We have to move on to the next one, but thank you so much, and I hope you continue
I
to.
have to finish my point. I'm sorry, I have to. And that is the city, it's a recurring theme. The city council is corrupt. When are we going to actually address that?
That's why there's the election this November. I hope that we can mobilize voters to do stuff. We're going to move on to the next speaker. Yes. What? Can we move on to the next one? Who said wait? Hold on. We're going to no. So yes.
5 things. There's corruption. The city council, for the last 15 years, the developers are coming in
By the way, my name is Deborah Guadian. I'm born and raised here.
Hey.
This town of Santa Cruz was initially a retirement home and a tourist city. The traffic, this is not for all the traffic. They want to have 10,000 more students at UCSC. Where are we going to put the cars? Where's the environmental, the wildlife, and the public health and safety? Who's the public health and safety? Who are they? Aren't these, the public health and safety committee, aren't they supposed to make it so the public is healthy and safe? So who's pocketing the money? Audit America? Because this last 15 years, someone's coming in, developers, under Measure J, wasn't it? You get 15 units at a corner, 3 of them have to be affordable. That's not happening. 16 or 60, apartments on Pacific.
Can everyone hear?
60 apartments on the mall that were just built. None of them are affordable. City manager, planning department, who's getting paid under the table? So how about doing a civil lawsuit against the city of Santa Cruz and audit the last 15 years of where all the money's been going?
Join the movement. Welcome to the movement. Right? That's what we're talking about. Roland is next, and then we have Brent back here.
Did we get a list of boycotting people? Thank you for the awareness of Whole Foods. We need a list of who else to boycott, and everybody needs to start boycotting the big corporations.
That's what it's all about. Vote with your dollar. Roland, and then Brent.
There's an app called Boycott, I believe it is, and you can download it. I think it's BUYCOTT. And you can scan anything at the grocery store and it'll link to where they spend their money, and it'll tell you about it, and you can choose whether you want to buy at that store or that product or anything. You can download it and just scan any item, your toothpaste, your deodorant, whatever you want.
See, this is what it's all about. Kia, and then it'll be Rowan and Brent, and then we got a hand in the back with this little one, which is going to be great. So, Kia, go ahead. Kia.
Oh, never mind. I was making sure our panelists.
Check. Rowan. We're only moving a little fast because we're reaching our deadline.
So, to address one aspect of the housing crisis that we have a movement for housing justice, and it is pushing for rent control for Santa Cruz. That doesn't add any one unit to the housing stock that we have, but it will allow those people who have a home to stay in that home here in Santa Cruz. And we need a lot of people to volunteer to get out the vote. This Sunday from 4 to 6, we have a kickoff party. I will be at the entrance there at the exit. If you want to come and join the kickoff party and join the movement for housing justice, it would be great. I don't know if Drew will say anything about his candidacy.
Yes.
We need him and Justin Cummings to be on the city council. I don't know how you're going to pull yourself into 4 different parts, but we have lots of things to do, and we'll get it done if you'll help us out with the various things, drives to register voters, get them out to vote, commit to vote for Justin, for Drew, and for rent control in Santa Cruz, and for repeal of Costa-Hawkins, the statewide law that makes it really hard to have rent control anywhere in California. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. See you, Rowan, before you leave. Just a point of information, Costa-Hawkins is a statewide legislation that makes it so that rent control is unable to apply to housing built after 1995. So if we can pass Prop 10 and repeal Costa-Hawkins this November, then rent control will be applicable on all housing in California. Great. So moving on to Brent Adams, and then we have the one in the back there.
I'll try to be real quick. I do love big tent movements that bring people together. If you've seen the long span of Santa Cruz activism, liberalism, progressivism, to a certain extent, we've lost our center. We've lost our heart and soul as a community to larger capitalist issues. Trump, the screws are ever tightened. It's so hard to be here that it's hard to actually engage or even agree on everything. As soon as we start meeting, then our particular politics drive us wildly apart because we're so fractured. And we have so many philosophical concepts on the left they're great and valid. It's important to know about all of them. But I want to really, again, reiterate, please participate in the rent control movement. This is something that's really going to invigorate our community. It's really the people involved. I think they're doing really good work. Very quickly, when we talk about poverty, for our People's Campaign, right outside, there are hundreds of people sleeping outside tonight. We use them kind of as window dressing to our movements. We talk about them, but we don't really engage. What we want to do, Warming Center, I just want to say really quickly, we have a program called Day and Night Storage, Coalition on Homelessness. What we did was we listed the basic needs. Yes, we can drive the ship, the big Titanic, larger ship, not Titanic.
Larger, more stable.
Terrible metaphor. Well, democratic politics to a certain extent is huge and lumbering. And while a movement like this is really powerful and important, but right now there are people suffering. So some of the needs are, of course, people freezing at night. No more. Let's make some bottom line stands that certain things will never happen again in our community. We take the hard line as the Warming Center program is a nonprofit. One of the things is people carry their stuff around. So we have a program called Day and Night Storage Program. And our programs are scalable to infinity. Not one person has to carry their things on their back ever again, as long as this program is free, run by an unfunded, we don't get any government funding, but we have a fundraiser coming up. It's called Dinner Theater Ambiance. And it's September 14th. Look it up on Eventbrite. I have flyers I'll throw at you on your way out. This is to fund the storage program. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about the storage program? I know that you meet at the tire place by the Warrior Stadium, but is there another place in town that you can meet people in the morning?
Well, right now, we started at the lowest common denominator. We show up 2 hours in the morning. Think the business time of business 9 to 5. 2 hours before that, 7 to 9. 2 hours after that, 5 to 7. We took our shuttle van and outfitted it with shelving and put 80 bins in there and started up. And already we've got over 140 people using our program. People also can, so they show up there. That's where we're at right now. But we will be transitioning as we get more funding to a fixed location near a nexus of greater homelessness in Santa Cruz. Does that make sense? It's not ideal. It's in a parking lot between the levee and the back of Wheelworks. We have permission, long, hard fought from the city manager's office to be there until the end of September. Until then, they get the jibs up.
A great example of activism and activism long-time activist and someone dedicated to the mission. Brent Adams, I encourage you to get a chance to talk with him about the work. We've had some great conversations about solutions that we can implement here in Santa Cruz. In the back, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Yeah, you.
Okay, well, one of my questions is not important at all. My name is Abby, though.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, well, I have a question. Why is there a green little bunny that helps us?
So that's my boyfriend. They're telling me that my phone is not connected to my computer. And I tried to shut it down once. I actually did press quit once during this thing, and it's very determined. So thank you for pointing it out. I will make sure that they hide next time.
Okay, also, one more thing. I'd like to share my family story.
Oh, would you like to come to the microphone?
Yes.
Yeah, come on up.
Take it off, take it off.
I had a dad who paid rents and all, but then one unlucky day came. I'm not sure I want to show that part, but anyway, one unlucky day came in, an incident happens, and then the police were called. So when they came, he got arrested, and well, he was sent to years in jail, prison. we try to stay with, but the problem is Mama and our relatives, they get in fights, so we always have to leave, always. Like, I'm always guessing whenever a very, very big fight happens. Oh, we're gone. So, yeah, that's the problem. But I have an idea that might work.
Ooh, what is it?
I was thinking that I have a lot of talent. I was thinking maybe I can help my family and get some kind of job. And because I have talent, and maybe that would work. And then it could be easier to pay rent and get food.
That's very honorable of you.
So sometimes my mom has to work very hard and figure out what to do for food, and we have to spend like most of our time when we're not in a house, in our van, thinking of what we're gonna do.
And how old are you?
8 years old.
8 years old. Well, thank you for sharing. Does anyone want to give any questions for us? Do you have any questions?
Abby.
You get any questions, Abby?
Well, that other little question was my only little question.
Well, thank you for sharing. We hope that you join the movement and we can continue working together to figure out ways that we can support each other.
Okay.
Yeah?
Well, I don't have other much to share.
That's okay. Well, thank you for sharing now. And everyone, round of applause for Abby. Yes, you are amazing.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I wish I had as much talent as you do behind the mic. You're incredible. You are so brave. We are sorry that we failed you. You were thinking about big answers to really big problems, and that should not be your concern. There's a verse that I like, whether you're Christian or not, that says, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to sleep at night." Jesus was homeless. And that verse is not just a statement of homelessness, but it's a statement of protest. The worst thing you could call anyone back in that day was a fox. It was like a really bad curse word to people. And I was actually referring to institutional religion. And a bird was a symbol of Rome, and it was a statement against empire. So religion and empire has failed you, but the people in this room want to make that right. And thank you so much for everything you said. Thank you.
And this is why we need spiritual leaders focusing on this kind of work, because of messages like that and the ability to connect across stories with common themes of justice and equity. I think our last comment back here, Mr. Curtis Relaford. If we don't know him, you should know him.
I'm just following my heart coming up here because I'm sitting back here and I'm listening to this and inspiring me up to speak on what little I know. I don't know nothing about no activists, but I see what this man is doing out there, and I've been taking notes in his travels for these last few years, just watching him. And there was a couple settings that I went to, and the folks who did know what they was doing, those activists, the questions I asked, they said I need to join in with him. I didn't care what he was doing. I just heard what he was doing. And I joined in. Make a sign, Kurt. Just be present, Kurt. Just be there behind, just watch his back. Just be there for the man. And I'm with him for the city council, big time, to push it. And maybe he could hear our voices. Because I feel that we are with him. I feel very discriminated against out there doing it my way. Hey man, you don't know poor until you've been poor. There's poor and then there's poor. And I know poor. And my way of making a difference is just using what I got. I know how to dance. I make noise. I know how to make noise. And I try to make positive noise down there on that trailer, dancing on that truck, downtown, bringing the community together. I know how and I talk to people, and I know how to give. The last 13 years I've been giving food, clothes, building material, and to the people here too, and the homeless people downtown. But my rewards to that is tickets. I got thousands of dollars of tickets for promoting peace, love, compassion. That's what I got on this. And I'm not asking nobody for anything. I'm just doing it. And I'm letting Spirit work. You talk about Jesus. I'm trying to follow that lead. I really am trying to follow that lead. I ain't all there because I don't take no shit. And I do what I think is necessary to get the job done. Y'all, there's some poor people out there and their mind is not there to do. My head is clear. I got 32 years clean and sober. So I'm using that to step out on faith to see what do God want me to do. And he's saying, hey, Kurt, you can't help everybody, but we all can help somebody. And I think that's where it starts. You ain't got to know what he's doing or where this thing going to go. We don't know where it's going to go. But one step at a time, baby steps, just helping this campaign grow and grow and grow. It got to make a move. It got to make a difference. Because the rich do not give a darn. The rich do not care. And I done been in some neighborhoods raising hell. I mean, loud music, yeah, it's crazy hell. They coming at me real angry. But I just push for Drew, you all, and I hope and I pray and you all to push hard for him. This ain't no joke. This ain't no joke. I am in tears behind being by myself doing what I'm doing. So I don't know, I just really had to follow my heart up here to shout out.
Thank you, Curtis, for sharing. If you don't know Curtis's van, it's the giant one that has peace written on the side of it. That's 2 car lengths long and has American flags flying all over it. He also takes aid and materials to the Hopi Reservation and other Native American populations for support. So that is the end of our question and answer period. Now you have your cards. If there's someone that is willing to collect them, or if you want to hand them at the end to the person as you're leaving, you can drop them in the donations table. If you have a card that you've written on that you want to give to us, if you want to hold it up, then CB can come and grab it from you, which is great. We got one here. We got one there. We got one there. Great. It'll keep popping up. This is what I love to see.
Pass it over this way?
Yeah, I guess we'll pass them that way. That works. Thank you, Peter, for trying. I appreciate that. Good.
Drew, can I say something for 2 seconds?
Yeah, 2 seconds. Just
2 seconds,
kidding.
really quick. Movements need people, y'all, and I love the turnout tonight. It's awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. That's great. But this isn't going to go anywhere unless there's more people, so I'm challenging everyone to bring 2 or 3 more people. As encouraging as it was to hear all these organizations talk about what they do, we actually want you to put us out of a job. We want our jobs to be unnecessary because we want society to be just. That's not going to happen without a movement. So everybody, between now and the next meeting, please bring 2 to 3 people with you. That's it. And we can triple in size in a month. You can do it. So that's my last piece of input.
All right, and don't leave yet because we got one more song. This one's going to close us out. It's called We Shall Not Be Moved. You may have heard it before, right? And so this one's kind of more soulful. It'll be kind of mellow, and then maybe we'll kick it up depending on the tambourine man, or the tambourine Cynthia. So here we go. We shall not be. There we go. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. Holding young together, we shall not be moved. We're old and young together. tables out there, there's new people you probably don't know here, and there's lots of flyers waiting for you to take them. So thank you again. Remember, September 6th, the first Thursday of the month in Watsonville at the Pajaro Valley Health Center. Health Trust, that one. Yes. Thank you for being here.